Captains of Industry, is brought to you by the new BMW X5.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Captains of Industry. My name is Gugulethu Mfuphi. Well, I may be the envy of many girls today because I'll be speaking to Sue Fox, who is the Managing Director of Estee Lauder Companies in South Africa as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. Thanks so much for joining us today, Sue.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Perfect. Looking at your title, that has changed over the last couple of years when you were just the MD of Estee Lauder Company South Africa. So your portfolio has grown, no doubt. A lot of responsibility on your shoulders?
Yeah, it's very exciting though. I mean, I think it's an enormous privilege actually for anyone at the moment to be able to open new markets. And we're loving it. It's super exciting, lots of growth, and it's an area of the world that I personally absolutely love.
So tell us about this excitement. I understand Estee Lauder as a group of companies has pumped at least $1 billion into the Sub-Saharan African market. What's unfolding on the continent at the moment?
Well, there's lots of excitement. I think, you know, it's a seeding strategy at the moment. It's a very nascent territory. So we're looking to build our brands to offer the consumer in Sub-Sahara, or in the Sub-Saharan countries, the products that at the moment they're really only able to buy when they travel abroad. So we're launching our brands in these markets. We've launched Clinique and MAC in Lagos and Abuja in Nigeria, very successfully. We've also opened Clinique and Estee Lauder in Kenya, in Nairobi, and both the brands are performing very well there. So it's very interesting.
So what's the uptake been like, especially from the emerging middle class market? Perhaps you can allude to your most popular products.
Very, very popular. I mean, they've been very positive about the fact that we've arrived in various countries in Africa. And I think, you know, the fact that we're able to offer our world-class high-touch service to the consumer that they have grown to accept and expect everywhere else in the world, now in their own countries, I think is you know, really important for those consumers to enjoy that experience and to know that they can now buy authentic product in the market, which is great.
I understand moving into the African market is something that took so long because of the challenges that were posed to regarding trade. Walk us through how you've managed to overcome some of those challenges, such as regulation, infrastructure, lack of development with regard to infrastructure, and so forth.
We actually run our business through distributors in Sub-Saharan Africa, but we are very, very actively involved in building the brands in conjunction with the distributor and the retailer. So we're operating mainly at the moment with local retailers in Sub-Saharan Africa who've got the knowledge and the expertise within those markets. And I think what we bring to them is obviously our international prestige brands, but we also bring them vast experience, and we're able to offer good advice and really assist them in developing our business in those countries.
Has it been tricky addressing the different ethnicities that are present on the African continent?
You know, we're a very innovative company, and it's extremely important that we can service every single consumer to the best of our ability. So we've done a lot of work with our brands on ensuring that we've got the right shades, the right formulations that are suitable for all ethnicities. You know, we've run locally relevant campaigns such as Clinique runs a campaign called Shades for Africa, which is all about their foundation range. The Estee Lauder brand runs a campaign called Foundation for the Nation, again introducing all of the diverse shades that are available within their foundation range. And the great thing about that campaign here, anyway, in South Africa, is that it's got a fabulous corporate social responsibility angle to it as well.
Tell us about that. How's that strategy working?
So corporate social responsibility has really been a foundation of Estee Lauder companies globally ever since we were founded. And here in South Africa, we found it very, very important to be able to give back to the communities. So one of the great things that Estee Lauder has done with their Foundation for the Nation campaign is we're working with Making a Difference charity, which is a charity you may know. It was founded by Francois Pienaar some while ago, and it supports children who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, who perhaps wouldn't be able to have the opportunity of going on to tertiary education because unfortunately they wouldn't be able to afford it. So 4 months in every year, the Estee Lauder brand gives 10 Rand for every single foundation sold to the MAD charity. And so far we are in the process of educating 10 young women through university. And we provide, all of their books, the fees, the accommodations, etc. And one of the great things that just happened is that our Charitable Contributions Committee at our New York Global Office have just given a further $100,000 to the MAD charity to allow us to almost double the number of kids that we're able to work with and assist. So it's just one of all of the corporate social responsibility programs that we run within the organisation.
It definitely does seem as though corporate social responsibility is important to the Estee Lauder group of companies, because MAC also has Viva la Glam, which has contributions towards HIV/AIDS prevention as well as treatment.
Yeah.
So is it a core focus of your business?
It is. It is. I think it's a core focus of the company. We've got a breast cancer awareness campaign, which was founded by the late Mrs. Evelyn Lauder. And that is a global campaign. This year we worked with a charity called Trees for Pauline, and we clad lots and lots and lots of trees around Johannesburg in bright pink, which is pink is the symbol of breast cancer. There have been millions and millions of pink ribbons, which were co-founded by Mrs. Lauder, given out around the world. So we run that campaign every single year. The MAC AIDS Fund has contributed, well over $250 million to HIV/AIDS charities. So anybody who's affected or infected by HIV. And then the final thing that is probably a fun thing that we do every year is we actually close our office and our distribution centre, and we do something called a Do It Day, where we all come together and we go out and we work in a charity, painting, making a garden maybe, fixing stuff up, and everybody is actively involved in this. And it's a great team building, but it's also super satisfying because at the end of our time with this charity, we've virtually transformed the environment from when we arrive to when we leave. And I think it's something that all of our staff really enjoy.
It is a fantastic story, especially the drive to benefit society overall. But so perhaps if you can walk us through the business behind the beauty industry, especially in such tough economic times. Walk us through, the challenges that you often face, such as sluggish economic growth on the African continent, labor unrest. It seems as though there's such a negative outlook on business in future in Africa.
I'm not sure I agree with you. We see this as, an environment of growth. I think we're very optimistic about the opportunities that the Estee Lauder company's brands have within South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. We've got an amazing portfolio of brands, and we are the market leader in terms of prestige beauty. So we're very confident that the brands that we have and the products that we can provide to our consumers. And I think the trust that the consumer has in our products and our brands really positions us extremely well for future growth. I think it's very important to understand, what the consumer wants at this time. And, we make sure that we've got the right products with the right shades. We do see growth. Yes, I think the economy is tough, but I think if you provide excellent service, if you spoil your customer, and all of our consultants and beauty advisors and makeup artists and stylists are all extremely well trained to be able to provide that best possible service to a customer. So hopefully he or she will walk away feeling like $1 million. And it's amazing what, a change of lipstick can do for your personality.
And I want us to touch on that maybe, because I was having an interesting discussion with a few colleagues back at the office, and they said regardless of how tough times can be economically, but usually cosmetic companies see an uptick in sales regarding lipstick when there's a depressed spending environment for consumers. Is that something that you've seen in your numbers as well?
I think we do see it. I think it was known as the Mr. Lauder lipstick gauge. Or
yes, that's the one.
Something like that. Yes, definitely. I mean, I think it's very easy for you to transform yourself with a lipstick
instead of buying a new pair of shoes.
Exactly. It's it's less of an outlay, and you can immediately change how you look, your confidence, your personality, everything. So yes, I think we're lucky that we're in an industry that it does provide luxury, but at an accessible price.
And that's the important factor. Well, we're heading into a short ad break right now, but when we return, we'll continue speaking to Sue Fox, who's the MD of Estee Lauder Companies for South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Welcome back to Captains of Industry, where I'm speaking to Sue Fox. She's the MD of Estee Lauder Companies for South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, Sue, we're speaking to you because you're a leader, a well-known, successful female business leader. Has that been challenging, the female title being attached to your leadership abilities?
Do you know, I've been asked that question a lot of times, and I think I've been terribly fortunate in that people have accepted me in the position that I'm in, and I think I've been very lucky. I was, when I was much younger, I was given the most amazing opportunities by previous bosses, and I sort of arrived in my role, and it was sort of, I don't know, a natural progression, and it's great to be a female leader, but it's also fantastic that within Estee Lauder Companies, we have a lot of absolutely amazing females who lead within the organization.
I want you to walk us through your opportunities that were presented to you a lot earlier in your career. What were they, and how important is mentorship in this kind of industry that you work in?
I mean, I think I was very fortunate. I was sort of launched through a company and given opportunities that probably surpassed my experience, but were great learnings and great teachings, and I had a great support structure around me. So, I think I was extremely lucky in the opportunities I was given. And then when I joined Estee Lauder Companies, I joined in the travel retailing division, which is our duty-free side of our business. And that is an amazing learning ground. And I started off looking after Europe, Middle East, Africa with them. And then I moved to Asia Pacific. And then I was fortunate enough to move to our New York head office. And I really got to see the world and to learn about different cultures and how to respond to working amongst different ethnicities with different languages, different requirements, different ways of doing business. So I think I've been given this amazing platform from which to learn. And it's been a privilege, actually.
So you're quite the definition of a global citizen then, aren't you?
Yes, maybe.
But then walk us through that, where you perhaps learned lessons in, the Middle East and versus the US and versus an area like Africa where the environments are so different.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest learning for me was I moved to Johannesburg from Singapore, which is a vast move in terms of cultural differences. Everything is totally different. Africa to Asia is a lot of continents apart. But both experiences were fantastic. I think I had the opportunity to work pretty regularly in Japan, and there the culture is totally different to somewhere like Singapore.
What about the culture? Is it the people? Is it the environment?
I
Is
think
it technology?
It's definitely the people, but it's definitely the way you do things in Japan, and the very polite forms of engaging with people, very humble as a population, I found, but with great traditions and fascinating cultural environment, and I really enjoyed my experiences in Japan. I think here, it's very different. Where this is an interesting market in that it's both an emerged market and an emerging market, and how do you combine the two successfully? There are a lot of cultural differences that I've come across, but I think overall, people are very open to learning here and to growing and to experiencing what I've been fortunate enough to experience. So they've seen it as a learning, I think.
Well, anyone listening to this interview can tell that your accent is not entirely South African. So take us back to, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What were the key influences in your life as a young teenager?
I was born in the West Indies, in Jamaica.
Oh, wow.
And I was educated in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and then latterly moved to London when I was about 15. So I regard myself as a Londoner.
How often do you go back to Jamaica? Not many people can say they were born there.
I haven't been back for ages, but I was back when I lived in New York. I went back because it was quite close, but I haven't been back since then.
And your first job, what was it like, and how big was your first paycheck?
Tiny. My first, actually, I temped for a while when I left university because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But my first proper job actually was with Estee Lauder companies, where I was PA to the national sales manager of the Aramis brand. So I started with the company and then I left, and was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to come back probably about 8 or 10 years later.
Gosh, you mentioned university. How important a role has that played in your life?
Oh, I loved university. Yeah, I was at Leeds University and I studied history of art with Italian, so not a business degree at all. But it was very eye-opening, and I think it gives you a rather broad way of looking at life, and I think it influenced me a lot. I had a great time at university, lots of fun. Yeah, it was great.
But it also seems as though within the Estee Lauder group of companies, education is a very important thing. Everyone knows that you train your makeup artists quite rigorously. So it seems as though almost from a junior to a senior level, that there's a key focus on mastering your art.
Yeah, training and development within the Estee Lauder companies is really an integral part of our whole philosophy and our strategy. And it reaches from the very, very important staff who work for us in store, selling our products and helping to make sure that our consumers get the right products. But training is also held throughout our organisation globally, and it's been a big focus for us here in South Africa in terms of training and development of our staff across our office. So in general, I would say that everybody within our affiliate is touched by some training or other every single year.
What are the 3 words of advice, if any, that you offer to the most junior of staff members who are trying to work their way up in this industry?
I think, gosh, it's a difficult question. I could easily answer it for my management team, but for younger staff who are just joining, and I think it's interesting because we have a graduate program here. And our recent intake of graduates, I had the pleasure of spending an hour with them the other morning. And I said to them, never be frightened of making a mistake, because I think you learn from your mistakes, as long as you don't make them again. So that's really important, that I think, the ability to make a mistake, be very honest about it, but to learn from it and to grow from it, I think is a good learning. We've all made mistakes, every single one of us. So that for me is it's important.
Looking back on your career, a very successful one, I might add, is there anything that you do differently if you could go back?
I don't think there is.
Why?
I think I've been extraordinarily fortunate in where I've lived, the people I've met, the people I work with, the opportunities that have been presented to me. And I think, I've always had a sort of love affair with Africa, if you like, and have spent a lot of time on holiday in Kenya. And it was amazing when the company offered me this job in South Africa, that actually I would get the opportunity to live in Africa. And now that I'm involved in managing and leading the team across the Sub-Saharan African continent, it's amazing. I think I've got one of the best jobs in the world, actually.
Looking for an assistant?
Of course.
Perfect. But how do you strike this work-life balance? I'm sure your position is very demanding. You travel a lot. You've been all over the world. When do you find downtime?
I'm quite good at relaxing. I'm very good at switching off on the weekend, and just enjoying being at home or out with friends.
Or with Maddie.
Or with Maddie dog, yes. I'm quite diligent about that. So that's good. I'm pretty diligent about taking holidays, and really encourage all of the team to take holidays.
So before we go, what's the one thing you want our viewers to remember about the Estee Lauder group of companies, specifically with regard to the African continent?
That's a great question. I think obviously we feel that we've got the best products for our consumers. Our service ethic and our high-touch service is very, very important, that every single consumer has a great experience at whichever brand she's visiting. And I think, hopefully in our conversation today, what I've told you about what we do to try to give a little bit back to communities and individuals shows that we've also got a very big heart as a corporation.
So beauty, but with brains, and caring for society too.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time today, Sue. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, that's where we leave this week's edition of Captains of Industry, where we spoke to Sue Fox, who's the Managing Director of the Estee Lauder Group of Companies for South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. For myself and the team, have a wonderful day further.